Welcome to the Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
Hello, this is Roger Gaither, your host for the Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast. Today, Bill Macchio, publisher of Mount Pleasant magazine, chats with Doug Holmes, a former College of Charleston professor, now a local realtor. Doug is known in the Lowcountry as the Stats Guy because of his passion for tabulating local MLS information. Now, here's Bill and Doug.
Here we are, another podcast from Mount Pleasant Magazine, The Voice of MP, and I'm honored today to have you on, Doug. I really am. Just a short introduction. Doug Holmes is in real estate, but in 2006, he started providing data to the MLS and the agents around town, and every week, he comes up with the data based out of the MLS that people look at religiously to see what the market looks like. And why I wanted to bring Doug on is because this has been outstanding times for real estate. And Doug, thanks for being with us, man. Really, seriously. Thanks for being on the Voice of MP. When I travel and talk to realtors, your name always comes up. Do a little synopsis. Tell everybody out there, what's the real estate market doing right now?
Well, we had some pent-up demand from the fact that, we shut South Carolina and the nation down there for a little while in March and first part of April. So I think a lot of people might have read recently in the Post and Courier that, May was a terrible month compared to last May. It was down 22%. Well, that was because of the closed sales in May are based on the contracts that are written in March. Well, March was a little bit slower. But once we opened back up, we saw a tremendous amount of pent-up demand. The last 6 weeks have been historical for Charleston real estate. It's been the busiest 6 weeks ever in Charleston real estate.
Be specific so our listeners will understand exactly what's going on.
Well, normally in a normal week in the spring for the last few years, we've been able to put 350, sometimes over 400 homes under contract in a single week. In 2018, we hit an all-time high in the spring of 458 residential properties going under contract in 1 week. And the spring of 2019 and 18 and 17 were all about the same. 375 to 425 properties going under contract each week. And
this is, Doug, this is a whole Tri-County, correct?
This is in the Tri-County area, yes. Okay. All the different places in Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester.
Okay.
And so when March hit, we went down a little bit, and we were only seeing maybe 250, 275. So it wasn't horrible. It wasn't 2008 and 2009 kind of numbers. But we definitely saw a little drop-off because we shut the state down, we shut the nation down. But then as soon as we opened the state back up, it's been crazy. We've had over that 458 record that we set in 2008. The past 6 weeks have all surpassed that, and some by a long shot. The last 2 weeks, we went over 500 for the first time ever. That had never happened before in Charleston real estate history. So the closed sales for July and August will be based on all those contracts that have been written in the last 6 weeks. So we will see historical numbers for the number of closed sales in July and August. Yeah, May was off, but that was based on March. And now things are opened back up, and the real estate activity is off the hook.
It's incredible. In one of your reports, you mentioned in one of your emails, which I read religiously when you send them out, you asked for some documentation about people moving here, and some of those, and you reached out to your real estate clientele, correct?
Yeah, I have several hundred people who subscribe to my statistics service, agents who are, in the market, mostly, the top agents. They pay me a monthly fee to provide them with statistics on the market. They want to know what's going on, and they have other things to do. They have marketing and things like that. And so I run the numbers for them, and I provide those numbers to them, and they read it, and they're able to communicate communicate that information to their clients and help their clients make the right decisions.
So you asked them to tell you why, if in fact, not why necessarily, but in fact, are there people coming from out of town, in town?
Well, yes, I had a broker recently approach me and ask me that, or tell me that they had been approached by the Wall Street Journal and asked to provide information about the possibility that we've had a lot of people maybe moving here from the Northeast. I had to make a comment in one of my emails in the last month or so that might be what was happening. And so the Wall Street Journal contacted us and said, can we provide statistical proof of that? I said, well, that might be a little hard to do, and certainly might be a little hard to do at this point. Maybe in a few weeks we would have that statistical evidence. Still would be hard to do, but I said, I can get stories. I can get anecdotal evidence
and you got
subscribers. And so I sent an email out to the subscribers, and I said, tell me what you're seeing. Tell me if you're seeing a whole bunch of people from New York and New Jersey and the Northeast and San Francisco and Seattle and those places. And you've seen the emails that I've got. I shared that with you. It was crazy. I was inundated by emails from agents saying, yes, I'm selling homes left and right to people from New York City and New Jersey.
Were you surprised, Doug?
I was surprised to the extent that it was. I knew that there was some of that, and I knew that they were coming, but the stories that I heard, people are buying properties sight unseen. Some of them can't even, they can't get on a plane. They can't leave where they are. They're under quarantine, and they have been looking at 3D tours online and seeing the house and writing a contract just based on looking at the 3D tour.
So Doug, I wanted to read, and I also wanted to tell our viewers, if you go to www.voiceofmpodcast.com/buyers, they're going to be able to read the comments that you got. So again, that's www.voiceofmpodcast.com. Buyers. Okay. But this is a fine example right here. My sister lives in Midtown, New York, has been in Rhode Island for 2 months, and now Charleston for a month. She is looking at property in Charleston, so she never has to go back. Here's another one. I mean, this is incredible. I have a young couple driving 12 hours from New York to look at one home. Looked at the home and flew back. They currently live in downtown New York in a small condo looking at private schools for the child to go to kindergarten. It's a mess in New York, they say. I mean, it's the last 7, another one of your clients, Doug, last 7 contracts have been Boston, New York, Chicago, etc. It's definitely happening, especially in higher price points. Should see a price increase as a result. I mean, you've documented this. I know the Wall Street Journal encouraged you to be creative, but this is documentation that we're on fire, aren't we?
Yes. Some of the stories were quite interesting, and I will share. Probably my favorite story I'll share with you is, I don't necessarily know if she's put her home under contract with a Northeast buyer or not, but the price point of this story is amazing. I did a 3D tour for an agent on Daniel Island a couple of days ago, and I was talking with her. She was getting ready to list her house, so she wanted a 3D tour. And she said she had done all of her research. She's a very intelligent agent. She's been around for a long time. She did her research. She looked at the comps, and she came up with a price for her house on Daniel Island of $835,000 for a list price. And so she was getting ready to do that, and she thought to herself, I should probably look at what's active and under contract. And so she did that, and she saw a home down the street from her listed for $899,000 that was under contract that seemed very similar to her house.
Okay.
She called up the agent, and the agent said, yeah, your home is probably a little better than mine. The only thing I have maybe is a master on the main floor, and you don't. And so they talked about it, and they agreed to list it for $50,000 more than the $835,000. She listed it for $885,000 and had a contract within 1 week.
Wow.
So this is
full
very
contract for the full price.
Well, I don't know exactly, but I think it's pretty close. Yeah. And so, I mean, in a week, if it's not, it would be pretty close. But that's $50,000 more. And we're talking about an intelligent agent and her own home. And she had done the research. So this just shows you how fast prices are going up.
So, Doug, let me ask you something. My understanding is, and if you could let our audience know, that listings are down right now. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Business is always about supply and demand and price. Those three things are intimately related. I used to teach business calculus at the College of Charleston, and I would always tell my students that any business, supply, demand, and price are related, and you change one and you will have an effect on the others. And so in 2008 and 9 and 10 and 11, when things were bad, we had over 11,000 homes. So at some point, we had 18,000 homes on the market for sale in the Charleston MLS. Okay. So after we got through that in 2013, 14, and 15, we kind of got to a steady place where we had around 5,500 listings in our MLS, active listings, homes that could be bought. At any one time, you could go in there and find about 5,500 homes. Okay. So at the beginning of this year, that started to creep down just a little bit. And then when the COVID hit and we shut down the nation, it's been dropping like a rock. So we went from 5,500, now we're at 4,300, and I'm watching it drop every day. Normally it stays fairly steady, and it takes a little while for that number to change. You have properties being bought, and you have new properties coming on the market, and it stays in a pretty steady state. But it's dropped from the beginning of the year from 5,500 to down to 4,300. So there's just not that many to look at anymore. And so it's pretty easy to sell your house right now. It's really a seller's market.
So now's the time to list your house if you wanted to list to sell.
Yeah, especially if you had any kind of difficult property to sell. If you have a multi-million-dollar property or a property that's very large, anything that would make the property difficult to sell right now would certainly be the easiest time to sell a home, much easier than normal.
So I noticed in some of your stats you said that and normally at this time of year it's between 1,700 and 1,800 for 4 weeks. You were talking about the number of homes that are sold?
The number that go under contract. I mean, like I said earlier in the podcast here, we're usually around 400 to 425 each week this time of year. So roughly somewhere between 1,600 and 1,700 would be a 4-week period of that kind of activity. So right now we're getting activity that's averaging 500 a week instead of 400 a week. And so, we're looking at 500 a week over 4 weeks is 2,000 properties instead of 1,700. So yeah, activity is way up.
Can you reflect to our audience the pricing of the homes? Have you seen an escalation of the pricing of a typical home, like what you were just telling us about on Daniel Island? Is that happening throughout all the Tri-County?
Well, I think so. I think it is. I think it's happening everywhere, and I think that appraisers are going to. They're very good at what they do, and they will see this happening. A lot of those appraisers subscribe to my statistics service. And so a lot of people are scared right now to list their house at these crazy prices because they feel like the house won't appraise. But for the most part, 95% of the time when you get in a market like this, that the price is going up that quickly, amazingly, the appraisers are able to handle that. And I think you're going to see the closed prices jump up quite a bit in the next few months. It'll take a little while to see that. But I think July, August, September, October, I think we will see a pretty hefty increase in price.
So, Doug, you mentioned the stats. I wanted to tell our audience that if you they can go to Doug at charlestonrealestatestats.com and learn about your real estate service. And if somebody's a realtor, they can subscribe there at Doug at charlestonrealestatestats.com. Is that correct?
That's my email address, yes, Doug at charlestonrealestatestats.com. Only agents can subscribe to my statistics service.
Right.
The agents serve the public. Now, I'm a realtor myself. I help people buy and sell homes too. I have homes listed and under contract. And so, the other agents in the community are just like me. They're looking for information that will help their clients make good decisions. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Good realtors provide good information to their clients and then let their clients look over that information and try to make a good decision.
So the stats that you've been doing since 2007, 2008, you've never seen the volume of what the activities going on right now. Can you reflect on new construction for us?
Well, new construction has been a big topic for the last few years. Back in 2007 and 8, 8, 9, 10, and 11, when things were really bad, we saw a lot of short sales and foreclosures. And so I call them Joe and Sally homeowner, normal, typical homeowner that's trying to sell their house. They had to compete with short sales and foreclosures. They had to know what was on the market in terms of short sales and foreclosures. Well, the last 2 or 3 years, we've had no short sales and foreclosures, and we have not seen any kind of change in that during this COVID thing because the government has, forbidden foreclosures basically to happen. But what we have seen is an uptick in new construction over the last couple or 3 years. There's been a lot of new construction, and it's simply the demand. If we didn't have new construction, we would have even lower inventory than we do. And the builders have trouble sometimes after they took the shock of 2008 and 9. They have trouble coming back and being confident in building a whole bunch of homes at one time because they don't want to get stuck like they did in 2008 and 9. And so they've been a bit cautious about their building and their pricing. And people love new construction. They absolutely adore it. And sometimes that's all they can get. There's just not a lot of inventory right now in our market. So they're flocking to new construction pretty hard.
And are the builders able to keep up with the demand, in your opinion?
Well, so far, but I think recently they haven't been able to because they didn't realize that we were going to have this kind of increase in it.
Who did? I mean, it's incredible.
Nobody knew it.
So let's focus a little bit, if you don't mind, Doug, on tell me about your data that you can remember on the Isle of Palms and North Mount Pleasant and South Mount Pleasant. How do you feel about that?
This past week was shocking for the Isle of Palms. I mean, normally in a typical week on the islands, you just don't see that many properties go under contract. 2 or 3 is kind of average. If you see 4 on the Isle of Palms or Sullivan's Island go under contract in a week, it's kind of a lot for those places. So 6 or 7 probably is the highest I've ever seen in a week on the Isle of Palms. I don't remember ever seeing more than 6 or 7. This past week, we had 13 properties go under contract on the Isle of Palms, and they were almost all over $1 million, of course. And, Mount Pleasant is the most popular area in all of Charleston. Normally in Mount Pleasant, I mean, it's pretty busy over there, and the prices are pretty high. We normally see around 45 properties a week go under contract in Mount Pleasant. The past couple of weeks, it's been well over 50. I think this past week it was over 65. It's
incredible. This is for all of Mount Pleasant?
Yes, that's both parts of Mount Pleasant, north and south of the IOP connector.
Well, I think the service that you provide, these numbers, I've followed your career, as you know, but one of the things that I enjoy isn't the data. You have it is the data, but the fact that you have that passion, you just love this. You just love putting this stuff out there. I mean, you really.
Well, I'm a math guy. I like the numbers, but the numbers are just numbers unless you can kind of read into them. And so being in the real estate industry and being part of it and being a math guy, put those two together, and not a lot of people can do that. And I think I've been very helpful to the other realtors in the area. I think a lot of them really appreciate what I've done for them and hopefully have made everybody more intelligent about what's going on in our real estate market.
Well, I've told you this before. I mean, you're a rock star in this field. I mean, people know your name. They trust you. You've been very consistent in getting information out. So thanks for joining us here on Voice of MP. I mean, seriously, is there anything else that would be something you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
Oh, I just not off the top of my head. I think that I think that Charleston's going to continue to do great in real estate. People love the city of Charleston. They love, retiring to South Carolina, retiring to Charleston. We have a wonderful city. It used to be, when I went to college here at the College of Charleston in 1983, I thought it was a hidden gem. It was a great city then, but nobody knew about us.
Right.
But then you make us the #1 city in the United States for 10 years in a row in Travel and Leisure magazine. We're not hidden anymore. Everybody knows we're here, and they're coming. They're coming like crazy.
Well, Doug, like I said, I appreciate you being part of the podcast, and I think our viewers will get something from your contribution. And just thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thanks for spending your time with the Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast by Mount Pleasant Magazine. Your community, your podcast. Listen to this and more local podcasts at mountpleasantpodcasts.com.